Assalamu alaikum, parents and students. Welcome to another week of distance learning. Please make sure when you log into MS Teams that you head over to the right channel for your resources. Today's subject is math. So we'll go over to the math channel and then we'll press on files. And since this is week 6, we're going to go ahead and open the week 6 folder. In here, you will find the attached online learning lesson plan. You will find the PowerPoint as well as the worksheet and answer key. Parents, please make sure you check the online learning lesson plan. In it, you will find the lesson overview, the success criteria, the learning steps and assignments, as well as resources that will be helpful while learning the skills this week. All right, we've also attached the math worksheet and answer key for students to self-assess after they complete their work. So let's take a look at today's presentation. Our lesson for today is comparing fractions. So we've been doing quite a bit on fractions, and now we are going to learn how to compare them. Okay, at the end of the lesson, learners will be able to compare fractions by using models and strategies involving the size of the pieces on the whole. All right, so we're going to be using the size of the pieces of the whole to compare fractions. All right, and we will use the success criteria to assess our learning. I can use a fraction to name a part of a group, and I can use strategies to compare fractions. We should be able to do this at the end of the lesson. All right, let's revise our previous knowledge. Let's review a little bit. We can read and write fractions as part of a whole. Over here we have 3 out of the 4 pieces shaded, so that's 3/4. I can also read fractions as a part of a set. So over here, it looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 8 butterflies that are blue. So 4/8 are blue. I can also read and write fractions as a group. How many of these groups have worms in them? And it looks like I have 1, 2, 3 groups, and only one of them has worms. So 1 out of 3, or 1/3 of my groups, have worms in them. And the last way that we can read and write fractions is by looking at numbers greater than 1. So over here it looks like I have 3 boxes of tomatoes. So I can say I have 3 full boxes, or I can count the number of each of my tomatoes and then put it over how many are in each group. So my total number of tomatoes is 12, and each group has 4 inside, so my fraction will be 12/4. So I can use numbers greater than 1, or I can use a fraction like this. All right, we also looked at fractions as part of a whole, and we can write a fraction to name the shaded parts. Like over here, looks like I have 4 out of my 6 pieces shaded, so that's 4/6. Over here, it looks like my full circle is shaded, so 2 out of my 2 pieces, or my whole circle, is shaded. Next, it looks like I have 1, 2 out of 3 shaded, so that's 2/3. Next is 7/8 shaded, and then 3/4 shaded. All right, so now we know how to write a fraction to name the shaded parts. We learned that already. We also know how to write a fraction to name the red part in each set. All right, over here we have how many red caps? Well, first I need to see my total number of caps. And over here in total I have 6 caps. So that's my total number. And on top, for my numerator, I will write down how many are red. And it looks like 1, 2, 3 are red. So 3/6 are red. Next, for my crayons, my total number is 8, and only 2 of them are red. So 2/8 are red. And over here, my 4 apples, 2 of them are red, so that's 2/4. All right, we've also looked at fractions as a group, and we can write a fraction to name the blue part of each group. Over here, I have 2 groups of fish. How many of my groups have blue fish in them? Well, 1 out of my 2 groups, so half. Over here I have 3 groups of balloons, so how many of my groups have blue balloons in them? Looks like 1 out of my 3 groups, so that's 1/3. And over here I have 4 groups of buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4. How many of my groups have blue buttons in them? Looks like 1, 2. So 2/4 have blue buttons in them. All right, and then for fractions greater than 1, they're called improper fractions. We can write a whole number and fraction greater than 1 to name the part that is filled. So just like when we looked at the tomatoes earlier, we first counted the whole number, which was 1, 2, 3 groups of tomatoes, and then we made our fraction. And how did we make our fraction? We counted first the total parts. How many individual or how many total tomatoes do I have? And then on the bottom, my denominator is the total number in one whole group. So in one group, I have 4, and all together, I have 12. So 12/4. Over here, I have 2 boxes of daisies, or I have 12 individual daisies, and in each group there are 6, so 12/6. Over here for my trays of muffins, I have 1, 2, 3 groups, or I can say that I have 18 individual muffins, and in each group there are 6, so my fraction will be 18/6. All right, so we've learned a few different ways of writing and naming fractions. Now we're going to compare them. So how do we compare fractions? We're going to look at this model and think. Let's look at this model. Now over here I have a full bar, and over here I have half of the bar, or half of my rectangle. So here's one full rectangle, and here is half. Is 1 greater than 1/2? Well, let's look. Is my 1 greater than or bigger than my 1/2? Looks like yes. 1 is greater than 1/2. Remember, the alligator mouth eats the bigger number. Okay? So it looks like my 1, or my full 1 whole rectangle, is bigger than the half. Here's another example. Let's look over here. Over here I have 1/2. And then on top I have 1/3 and another third. Together these are 2/3. Right? So there's 2/3 over here and 1/2 over here. The question says, is 1/2 greater than 2/3? What do you think? Is 1/2 greater than 2/3? If you said no, you are correct. All right? The 2/3 is greater. 1/2 is less than 2/3. My half is smaller than my 2/3. Okay? Now it's your turn. You're going to take a look, and I'll give you a minute to decide which fraction is greater. Over here I have 11/12, and down here I have 1/2. So which one is greater? 11/12 or 1/2? Take a moment to decide. All right, and if you said 11/12, you were correct, because 11/12 took up more space than the half. So we need to ask ourselves, what strategies can I use to compare fractions? All right, to compare fractions, we have 4 different strategies. Number 1 is the same denominator strategy. Number 2 is the same numerator strategy. Number 3 is the missing pieces strategy. And number 4 is the butterfly method. So we're going to look at all of these strategies, okay? So here's number 1. Number 1 is the same denominator strategy. When the denominators are the same, we compare the number of pieces, or the numerators. So when I have the same denominator, when my shapes are cut into the same amount of pieces, all I need to do is check the numerator. All I need to do, if they're cut the same way, is to check how many pieces are more? How many pieces are shaded in more? So over here I have 2/3, and over here I have 1/3. Okay? And it looks like 2/3 is more than or greater than 1/3 because I need to think about the number of equal parts. Over here I have 3 equal parts, and over here I have 3 equal parts as well, right? Here I have 2 of the parts shaded, and over here I have 1 of the parts shaded. So there's more shaded here. That's why 2/3 is greater than 1/3. All right? So same denominator strategy means we need to compare the shaded parts. They both need to have the same denominator. They need to be over the same number. The bigger the numerator is, that means the larger the fraction. Okay, so when I have 2/5 and 4/5, they have the same denominator, but the numerators are different. That means 4/5 is greater than 2/5, all right? And here's a picture to make it easier to understand. All right, so over here is 4/5, and over here is 2/5. Now 4/5 is shaded way more than the 2/5, and that's why it's greater than. All right, when we have the same denominator, means our shape is split into the same number of pieces, and I need to look at which one has more shaded. All right, so here it's time for you to think about the same denominator strategy. All right, here we have circle A and circle B. Step 1, we will shade 3/7 of pizza A. So let's go ahead and shade 3/7 of pizza A. Then we will shade 5/7 of pizza B. So we shaded first 1, 2, 3/7 of pizza A. Then we went ahead and shaded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/7 of pizza B. And then we need to compare the shaded parts. So which one is greater than, A or B? If you said B, you are correct because 5/7 is more shaded than 3/7. All right, so 5/7 is greater than 3/7. Now we have our next strategy. This is the same numerator strategy. When the numerators are the same, we look at the denominators to compare the size of the pieces. So what does that mean? Here's our numerator. My numerator here is 3, and over here is 3, but the bottom, the denominator, is different. All right, so which one is greater than 3/4 or 3/8? Well, let's look at the bottom. I need to think about the size of the equal parts. Let's imagine that this is a pizza. If my pizza is cut into 4 parts, it means we can get larger pieces, right? And then if my pizza is cut into 8 parts, that means we will get smaller pieces. Does that make sense? If my pizza is cut into 4, look how big each piece is. But if my pizza is cut into 8, look how small each piece is. So is 3/4 greater than 3/8? Yes. 3/4 is greater than 3/8 because the pieces are bigger, right? My denominator shows me that these pieces are larger. So this is the circle with more shaded parts. All right, we need to compare the shaded parts when we're doing the same numerator strategy. We need to think. Both have the same numerator. The smaller the denominator is, the larger the fraction. So if I have a small number as my denominator, that means my pieces are larger. If my pizza is split into 3 pieces, means I'll get a large piece. If my pizza is split into 4 pieces, means I'll get a smaller piece. All right, so 2/3 is greater than 2/4 because we have less pieces here. So the less pieces we have, the more I can get. That's the same numerator strategy. Now it's time for you to think about the same numerator strategy. First, we will have pizza A and pizza B. we will shade 1/6 of pizza A. That means this one is cut into 6 pieces. Pizza B is cut into 8 pieces. All right, and you're only allowed to take 1 slice. So we will shade 1/6 of pizza A and 1/8 of pizza B. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, and when we shade them in, you'll ask yourself, which one is greater than? Which one is the bigger piece? Do you want the pizza with the bigger piece or the smaller one? Which one is bigger? If you said 1/6 is greater than 1/8, then you are correct, because these pieces are bigger, so you can get more pizza when it is split into a smaller amount of pieces. All right, so that's the same numerator strategy. Next, we have the missing pieces strategy. To use the missing pieces strategy, we compare pieces missing from a whole. We can use the missing pieces strategy when the numerators and denominators are not the same. So over here I have 3/4 of a pizza, and over here I have 2/3 of a pizza. And I can't really compare the denominators or numerators, so I'm going to look at my pictures and see. Well, it looks like over here I'm missing less pizza, and over here I'm missing more pizza. So 3/4 is greater than 2/3, because over here I'm missing less, and over here I'm missing more. Do you see how much less there is over here and how much more there is? There is too much missing of this pizza, and there's less missing over here. So the pizza that is missing less pieces is bigger than the pizza missing more pieces. So I can ask you, is 3/4 of a pizza greater, or is 2/3 of a pizza greater? And you will use your eyes and you'll look and you'll tell me, well, it looks like I have more pizza over here. So 3/4 is greater than 2/3, because we looked at the missing pieces. All right, let's take another example for the missing pieces strategy. Here I have 2/3 of a pizza, and over here I have 3/6 of a pizza. So let's look at the missing pieces. Which one is missing more? Which one is missing more? Okay, look at this big chunk over here, and this one looks smaller. So if this one is missing more, if 3/6 is missing more, that means 2/3 is greater than 3/6, right? Because here more is missing, and over here less is missing. So 2/3 is greater than 3/6. All right, we need to think. The pink circle is divided into 3 parts, and the yellow circle is divided into 6 parts. Which part is bigger, 1/3 or 1/6? Remember when we were talking about, do you want a big piece of pizza or do you want a small one? All right, we always want the bigger piece of pizza. So if my pizza has less pieces, means I'll get a big one. If my pizza has small pieces and more pieces rather, means I'll get a small one. Over here my pizza was split into 3s. Okay, that means I'll get a huge slice. Over here my pizza was split into 6. That means I'll get a small slice. So which one is bigger, 1/3 or 1/6? If you said 1/3, then you are correct. All right, and since 1/3 is larger than 1/6, then 2/3 is larger than 3/6. Our last method for comparing fractions is called the butterfly trick. All right, so stay with me. Step 1 is we multiply the digits in the red set of wings to find the product for the red antenna. So my butterfly always has 2 antennas, okay? Has an antenna over here and an antenna over here. So I need to circle opposite numbers, all right, to make a butterfly shape. So you'll circle opposite numbers to make a butterfly shape, and then I'll multiply the ones in red, and then I'll multiply the ones in blue, and I'll give each of them an antenna. All right, a different number at the top. So 2 times 4 makes 8, and 3 times 4 makes 12. So step 1, I multiply the digits in the red set of wings to find the product for the red antenna. So the red set of wings was 2 times 4, and that gave me 8. Step 2 was to multiply the digits in the blue set of wings to find the product for the blue antenna. And we already said that 4 times 3 makes 12. Then I can compare the fractions by comparing the products in the antennas. So let's look, which antenna is bigger? The 8 or the 12? All right, so if my 12 antenna is bigger, that means this fraction with this antenna right beside it is bigger, is greater than. All right, because 8 is smaller than 12. 12 is greater than 8. So that means this fraction is the bigger one. That means 3/4 is greater than 2/4. All right, and then we're going to do one more example. We will compare the fractions, and then we are going to write down less than, greater than, or equal to. So I'll take my first set of butterfly wings, okay, and we'll multiply 2 times 5. That gives us an antenna over here of 10. Then I'll multiply 3 times 4, and that'll give us 12. Which number is bigger, 10 or 12? 10 or 12? If you said 12, you are correct. So 12 is on this side with this fraction over here. That means 4/5 is greater than 2/3. My 2/3 is smaller. All right, so here we have 3/10 and here we have 8/10. On this antenna over here, you should have the number 30. And on this antenna over here, you should have the number 80. So 8/10 is greater than 3/10. For this question over here, you should have, for this antenna, a 16, and for this antenna, a 4. So 4/4 is greater than 1/4. All right, so to summarize, we went over a few different ways of comparing fractions. We looked at fractions with the same denominator. For this method, we compare the number of the pieces by looking at the numerators, and the one with the larger numerator is bigger. All right, so for same fractions with the same numerator, we compare the size of the pieces. We look at the denominator. We have to remember, is my pizza split into large pieces or small ones? If my denominator is small, means I get a larger piece of pizza. And if my denominator is big, means I get a smaller piece of pizza. All right, and then we looked at fractions with missing pieces using the butterfly trick. We create the antennas, all right, and then whichever antenna is bigger means the fraction next to it is greater than the other. Alrighty, and at the end of this lesson, please make sure that you do your worksheet and you self-assess using your answer key. And we also need to make sure we do our exit ticket to ask ourselves, what did we learn today? How did we find it? What is our next step? And give your feedback. You can also use the learning pit to see how well you did with this skill today. All right, thank you very much as always, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.